So there's been a lot of drama surrounding the European Citizens Initiative Stop Killing Games. I already put out a video on Stop Killing Games, but I didn't put out a video around the drama because I wanted the video that I put out to be solely informative and not tackle into the drama, because I think when you include the drama in the message, it detracts from the message and makes it more a battle of popularity and of favoritism and who do I like more, rather than being around the message itself. But I also do want to discuss the drama around it, because I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned with the drama around it. And as you are probably aware, most of the drama around it focuses largely on Pirate Software, so that's who we're going to be discussing today. That said, I want to lampshade a little bit and say that I have had personal interaction with Thor, with Pirate Software, that I'm not as happy about as I would have liked to be. I don't think it was handled properly, and it was a little bit frustrating for me, so that might be affecting my opinion here. But I'm going to try to tackle this as much from like an analytical and unbiased standpoint as possible. I'm going to break it down into different chapters, so those chapter markings will appear on screen and in the video timeline if there's a specific part you're interested in. I am going to try to make this as analytical and non-biased and play the devil's advocate where I feel like it's necessary to kind of create an understanding and a better feeling around this, and a better understanding and a better like takeaway from this as I can. That's the way I tend to like to tackle things like this. I prefer to discuss everything from at both sides, or from all available sides as possible, so that it isn't a one-sided argument kind of thing. It's not just bashing someone, it is understanding someone and someone's point of view, but also calling them out on the things that they might have done that are inappropriate, but also understanding why they might have reacted a certain way. With that, I'm going to get into the video, but I do want to try something real quick. If you guys will help me out with it, please help me out. I want to see how much it actually affects the analytics if I get more likes on a video and I get more likes early on in a video. So if you made it to this point, please leave a like on the video, and I want to see how much that actually affects the analytics, because I'm always thinking about like, okay, how much does the engagement ratio actually affect how well the video does and how much reach it gets. So please, if right now, leave a like on the video, that would be awesome. And if you don't like the video after it's over, you can take the like away. But here we go. I'm going to start by going over the videos that he initially put out on this about a year ago. And to clarify, I'm only I'm going to be watching and reacting to the whole video right now. For the sake of brevity, I'm only going to show the points that I actually have a reaction to that is relevant.
I also run a massive community. We've got about 180,000 people in Discord, and most of what I do is try to teach other people how to make games, teach them that they can make games, show them the tools to do so, and try to do everything without any paywalls or bullshit in the way.
The one important thing that I will say right here with what he just said is one of the things that he just admitted to, it's not, oh my God, it's not a conspiracy, but one of the things that he just said is that he recognizes that he is someone with influence. He is someone that has an influence over his audience that people trust, and that is important going forward in my analysis of this. So this, again, like this part, just to clarify, and as he goes on, I'm not going to make you watch the entire thing, but and I will link his video on this in the description so that you can watch it yourself. A lot of what he's saying right now seems to come down from a misunderstanding of what is specifically being asked for because of the vagueness, and I will give him that. It is because of the vagueness. So one of the things I'll also say is my initial thoughts around Stop Killing Games were based entirely on this video, because I had not heard about it before this video came out. And since, one, it was a European Citizens Initiative, and it wasn't something I was going to be able to sign, and at the time, I wasn't really looking... I wasn't putting out content that was in this frame at all. All my previous videos were just like storytelling and me telling stuff that happened in my life or Let's Play stuff. So this entirely framed my concept of it. So initially, I was against Stop Killing Games 2 because of the vagueness of it and because of the fact that it did seem, based off of me watching his video, I thought that it was demanding that publishers keep the servers alive and keep the games alive at their own detriment, at their own cost, long past the point where it's profitable to them. And to go into it, and if there's more in this particular segment that specifically discusses this, then I'm just going to cut forward, or my editor's going to cut forward. But it feels like this is from a misunderstanding of the way that they would solve this architecture thing, this problem of it being client-server game, is by releasing the data for the server is by making it so that the player base can access that and host their own server, and other people can go client server kind of thing. And does that introduce issues where someone might be hosting a private server where they can cheat? Yeah, sure. But that is on the player to make that decision of which private server are they joining. And one of the things I will throw Thor's way is this is based off of his understanding of what happened, and or not what happened, but what is being said, and the fact that it is a little bit vague. And I can understand that. I can understand why he would not want vagueness. That said, I obviously I don't agree with him on the standpoint altogether, because I put out a video that was completely disagreeing with him.
And it's really easy to say, like, oh, that'll get worked out down the line. But we're dealing with government here. If we're going to be putting up these types of ideas specifically in front of government, we need to be calling out the right issues, especially if you don't have precedent set. Because now you're going to be setting precedent on something that doesn't make any sense with people that may not understand the nuance of our industry, all in the name of saving games. I can't agree with that.
And again, I can respect that standpoint a lot. When you have vagueness in something like this, and you are relying on people to understand you to do what you actually want them to do, that introduces problems. That introduces people taking the wrong message from what you were trying to say, interpreting it in the wrong way, and making a decision that is contradictory to what you were originally asking for. With that, though, I will say that part of the European Citizens Initiative thing is a Congress or a commission member sitting down with the person who put the initiative forward, or a representative of the person that puts the initiative forward, and discussing it and explaining it and asking questions to get further understanding, and then sitting down with the European Parliament, but also other people being able to put their input in. So this part right here, gets worked out by the games industry coming forward and saying, okay, in these instances, that is not doable. And then them also having that discussion and saying, this is our response to this. In these specific instances, we cannot do this. The European Parliament gives the opportunity for the games industry to respond. So they're going to respond, and they're going to say, no, we can't. And they can go, and if they want to take the wild side and try to be like, no, this is entirely impossible in every possible instance, because they don't want to make any changes at all, then they're hurting themselves. They're shooting themselves in the foot. Or they can take the appropriate response and try to compromise and try to say, okay, we'll give you this. In some of these games, yeah, we can make this work, but there are just instances, the nuanced instances, when we can't make this work, and that's the response. But you shouldn't not make positive change just because there's nuance to that positive change. Instead, you work around that nuance and you figure out that nuance, and you make the positive change in a way that's not going to be detrimental as a whole.
And then the servers effectively die. You can't run a live service game on this few players. You can't.
Again, here it is. Maybe it is just, again, a misunderstanding of him thinking they're asking that they keep the public servers live when that's not what they're asking for. And if it's not, then what he's saying is, well, the game you got taken away from it has launched a sequel, so just buy the sequel. One, anyone who's played the Dynasty Warrior series knows that sometimes the older games are a lot better than the sequels. But two, I want to make the car reference that I've made several times when discussing this topic. Say I buy a Corvette. I buy a Chevy Corvette, a 2025 Chevy Corvette. And then Chevrolet, 5 years down the road, says, well, we're going to remotely disable your Corvette because we're not making money off of you anymore because you're maintaining it yourself. But we have a 2030 Chevy Corvette that you can go ahead and buy. That's insane. That is insanity. No one would be okay with that. It would be complete BS. And that is kind of here. Now, the price point is a lot lower, but it's still, his response to this seems to still be saying, we'll just buy the sequel. No, I bought the original. I like the original. I don't want to play the sequel. So, the solution should not be, we'll just buy the sequel.
Citing upcoming server infrastructure and licensing constraints. What were those licensing constraints? Well, it turns out that all of the cars in the game were licensed from the car companies. And a 10-year running game likely means that they had license to them for 10 years. And that means that it would likely reopen for negotiation.
This seems to be either a misunderstanding or a blatant just refusal to understand. I would 100% agree and I don't fully understand the licensing agreements. If the licensing agreement specifically said you need to make this game unplayable after these licenses have expired, like you need to go into every single, like retract the game, send a digital self-destruct code to every single person's copy of the game because we don't want anyone playing this after these licenses have expired, then that is, one, a wild take and don't sign that license. Two, announce that up front that, hey, when you're buying this game, these licenses expire in 10 years and we might not continue to support it. Then that's fair, but make it very blatantly obvious. But like, three, delist the game. Sure. Don't sell any more of it. Because my understanding, and I might be wrong here, I'm willing to admit that I might be wrong here. My understanding of it is that these licenses are about sales. They get you're paying for the license and you have the sales, ability to make the sale for this amount of time, similar to the way like streaming services work. A video that is listed on Amazon Prime, they have to license that video on Amazon Prime. And I have a lot of videos that I have bought on Amazon Prime, different movies and stuff that I bought on Amazon Prime, on Prime Video. After the license is lost, I don't lose access to that video. It's just no one else can buy that video. I have videos on Amazon Prime. I have movies on Amazon Prime that they no longer have a license to sell, but I still have access to the video because the licenses tend to be based around sales, not like whether or not this property exists at all. So 100% delist the game, but don't make it not playable because that, unless the license is specifically said this game is not allowed to be playable unless this license was renewed, then, and I really doubt that. And if that's the case, then you needed to be very, very clear and upfront about that when making the sale. And if you were very clear, and it was on the sales pitch of it and on the box, and then people are like, well, it's been 10 years, and the game said we only have 10 years, but I'm mad about that, you made that decision. But that's about informed consent.
If you try to tell me that every studio needs to run their live service game indefinitely or not run one at all, then
that's not what they're saying. And again, I think this initial response from Thor, a lot of it is just not understanding it. And I'm going to get, and after this video, I'm going to get into why I still think he has to have some ownership of that.
And that's why I think this needs to not be vague. It needs to be specific about the business practice it's trying to defeat.
I will agree with a necessity to be specific, but the way the European Citizens Initiative work, and again, he just might not have known exactly how it is, there is that opportunity to provide that specificity. The initiative itself just gets their foot in the door and allows them to go forward before the commission and go forward before Parliament and say, this is what we want. So I think, again, I'm going to say it right now, and I might go into it a little bit later. I think a better response to this would have been to say, I disagree, but I'm going to work with you on it. I disagree with the exact way that this is worded, and I'm going to reach out and work with you on it so that it's worded in a way that is effective. Because it's going to move forward whether or not he's a part of it or not. But if he cares, then he should be a part of it to make sure, at least try to be a part of it. See if Ross was going to be willing to work with him to get it worded in a way that he was comfortable with and that he thought was beneficial and get those specificities that, I mean, Ross just doesn't have the expertise to get in. I will say, again, there was a lot of politicians that cared a lot about video games. I mean, just look at all the stuff around GTA. And the things that politicians tend to care about video games tend to be banning video games and taking video games away. Like there was so much stuff like around GTA and other video games and Mortal Kombat that were like, oh, this is violent, this is corrupting our kids, blah blah blah. So they do care about video games. They just don't care about video games in a positive way. I also don't agree with the hey, push this forward because it's going to look like an easy win. That's not a good pitch point to me.
If we're going to be putting forward anything that may eventually turn into legislation, it should be passing because it's the right thing to do for consumers.
100% agreed. It should never be because it's going to pass because it's easy, because there's a lot of bills that could pass because they're easy but are damaging to society or to the community kind of thing.
Allowed to keep it?
In the case of live service games, in the terms of service for those, you're not buying the game. You're buying a license to the game. And but
that is a entirely different problem too that a lot of people disagree with. So again, a Pirate's response to this of, well, you're just buying a license, that is already another problem that a lot of people have with the games industry and the digital media industry to begin with. So saying, well, you're not buying it anyways, isn't really helping your argument because a lot of people disagree with that concept.
You're not buying the game, you're buying a license to the game. In the niche cases where a studio is trying to sell a game as if you are buying it or purchasing it or using that language specifically and they give you a live service game instead, I agree that should change. That language should change. You are not purchasing the game. You are not.
But there is most games, a lot of people, especially people that aren't like as online to understand it, when you buy a game, it feels like you're buying the game. Like, yes, somewhere in that TOS, especially like on websites like Steam and stuff like that, somewhere in that TOS it says that you're buying a license to the game and blah, blah, blah. But that's not up front. That's not on the cover art. That's hidden somewhere in language that no one ever reads. And that's also just something that shouldn't be the case. But there's, again, I'll say that 100%, there's a lot of nuance around that, because then how does it gets really complicated when it comes to, like, they need to make it a licensed game for some reasons, but not other. And I would agree with saying, hey, sell the game, but have something in the TOS that says if it is a live service game, that even though you have ownership of the game, they can still ban you from public servers because people cheat and hack and do stuff like that, and they need to have a way to punish them. That part's complicated.
And they can get an easy win in, and we can just push it through, and there won't be a lot of pushback on it, and they're not going to have to think about it too hard. That's crazy dangerous, dude. If you're going to be setting precedent, if you're going to be putting forward something that you want to start a conversation to eventually become legislation, and these are the reasons for it, not only can I not agree with the initiative, but I can't agree with you. And I think that
I agree with that. Like, that is a gross way to respond. But like, that is a very gross thing for him to have said. I will agree with that, for Ross to have said. But again, I'm more concerned with the message than the particular way that the person behind it is wording the message, at least in this case. And I think the more appropriate response from Thor, as someone with influence, Ross probably would have, if he messaged him, if he DM'd, if he reached out to him and said, hey, I want to work with you on this. I disagree with a lot of this stuff. I want to work with you on it. I think Ross would have been very reactive to that. And then if Ross said, no, I don't want to accept any of this, I want it to be done exactly this way, that's when Pirate comes out and says, no, I disagree with this wholeheartedly, kind of thing. That's the way I would have handled it. That's the way I think he should have handled it. But I can also understand why he was turned off by some of the stuff that Ross said.
So if we want to talk about this, let's talk about the actual bad business practices. In the case that a studio is making a live service game, and they sell it to you as a product. They say that you are purchasing the game or you are buying the game, when in reality you're actually purchasing or buying a license to that game. I think that we should be fighting about that. That needs to go away. A player should be well informed at the point of purchase.
Agreed. A lot of times when you buy these games, especially if you're buying a game and not buying a subscription, because if you're buying a subscription, everyone should understand that what you are buying is a license, is access to the servers. But when you pay now $80 for a game, implied assumption is that you are buying the thing. And they might have wording somewhere in the TOS or somewhere in the EULA or somewhere in wherever that says that is not the case. A reasonable person would assume that you're buying that. If I'm going to use the hammer analogy, if I go to Sears and I buy a hammer, and let's say I bought a really, really nice hammer and somehow found an $80 hammer. And then down the line, they said, oh, by the way, you were just buying a license for that hammer. And if you read this small text on the back of the box, it would tell you that you bought the license to the hammer and we're going to take it back now. Everyone would be on my side that that's BS.
Top of that, if you want to go the other route and say the company has to go and control it, well, what if the company's not around anymore? Is that just able to be monetized now? Again, this was obtained through abuse of the original creator. I don't think that's a good route. And this scenario gets even worse if you do allow monetization, because now I can just kill off your company and then monetize the server and no one will ever come after me. Now it's even more of a problem. So allowing monetization of this work is strictly worse. And for those of you out there that say, oh, this can be done right now, I could just destroy your studio and take your stuff anyway. You could, but this allows a route for it to be legal to do so. That's the problem.
The solution I would see there is making more strictly punishing attempts at that, like making it a felony, a large scale felony to engage in behavior like that. People are still going to try it, but people are still going to try stuff like that all the time anyways. I again, this particular video is going to have stuff that I can't really comment on, but I did want to, and I will admit that I'm not an expert in this stuff well enough to comment on this. Honestly, the thing that I'm more concerned about in this series of now 2 videos I'm going to be doing is responding to the drama and how specific things were handled, and the reactions people had. So like this part, I can't really comment on too much.
Putting this out publicly and talking to people about it, this specific scenario on both YouTube and Discord.
But again, I did not want to not include it and then have someone be like, well, you didn't include that part. It's like, it's because I can't really comment on it.
So in the most extreme, people said live service games shouldn't exist at all, and the initiative will kill them off for good, and that's a good thing. Well, you don't get to define what players get to play.
I just agree with that. Like, again, I'll like that is a wild take, because some games do have to have some level of live service component to make them functional and enjoyable and really work well and protect the customer base while they're being supported by the developer. So like in those cases, I don't have a problem with it. It's just the after the fact that I care about.
A lot of people don't realize that this will slowly diminish live service games in the market because it's not an incentive for us to build them anymore, which means you get less multiplayer live experiences. That sucks. I like live service games. I enjoy playing things like Final Fantasy XIV.
I disagree with him on that too, just on a there's always going to be the money in the live service game. So I don't think it's going to like de-incentivize it so much that people aren't going to do it anymore. I think there might be like some people, if it is a major financial burden, there's going to be some people that are going to, like maybe smaller studios and stuff that are less likely to make it, but are the smaller studios really capable of hosting their own servers anyways, kind of thing, so were they ever going to do it to begin with? But I think it's not going to stop big companies from doing this because they're so monetizable. Live service games are so monetizable.
But I would argue that this isn't actually preserving these games. Social games, such as, let's say, Apex Legends, require a number of players to be in the match at the same time so that you can have an experience that is only able to be obtained through lots of players interacting, right? It's a multiplayer.
And again, on this, like, it's like, oh, you need these massive servers to do this. Yeah, sure. But if some customer, after you decide to not support this game anymore, if some customer decides that, like, hey, maybe it's a rich dude, and he has the money to host these massive server banks, or maybe it's just someone that's hosting a server for like his 20 buddies or whatever, give them the opportunity to do that. Just because the customer base might not be able to do this doesn't mean you take away the opportunity. But again, it's almost like hypocritical in a way what he's just saying, because he's saying other people shouldn't be able to take away my choice to buy or make a live service game, but he disagrees with other people being able to host a game for them and their 5 buddies. You're taking away their choice. Yeah, a lot of people are going to be like, listen, I'm not going to log on to this server that only has like 30 people because that's what all this guy can host. But there are going to be people that are like, yeah, I might be playing with the same 30 people again and again and again, but I still want to. I mean, back in the day, that's what we did. Back in the day, we had split-screen multiplayer. That was it. Or LAN parties. That was it. You were playing with your insular group. That was the only people you were playing with, but we had a great time doing it. And he wants to not provide that opportunity to players that are okay with that, but also not want people to make decisions for him. A little bit hypocritical there.
Okay.
And yeah, there's more nuance to the hypocrisy. I'll agree with that. There's more nuance to that.
Bringing it back at its height, you're not taking a snapshot of what the game actually is. You're making it limp on in a way that doesn't make any sense.
It might not make sense to you. It might not make sense to Thor. But if the people that bought it want to do that, they don't care about, like, there not being 20,000 people all playing the game and you're getting a new experience every single time. They just want to play the game. And that makes sense to them. You're wanting to take that choice away from them, or never give them that choice to begin with in this case.
The trials and problems that this could arise inside of the gaming industry for people who are actually making the games you play. I don't have any reason to be quiet about that.
And I'll agree with that too. Just if he thinks this is something he needs to speak out against, that is his right to speak out against it. I would also say the better move, the move that I believe that he should have made, the more effective and mature move. I'm not going to say that this is immature, because so far he has been appropriate about it. He's just been like, there's stuff I think he's misinformed on. Would have been to reach out to Ross and say, hey, let's discuss this. Let's talk about this. I am a developer. I have this expertise. Let me help you work on the wording so that this is as good as it can be without being detrimental. Because if this is something that he cares about that much, he knows he can't, like, he knows that this is going on either way, and he could try to influence it to be shut down, but it still can go on past him, or he can get himself included into it and direct it in a way that he thinks is appropriate. Okay, so with that ends that there. I'm gonna part 2 is gonna be me going over his more recent reactions to that. There's a lot of stuff within this part, within these 2 videos, that I can understand and somewhat agree with, and I think he handled this part very, very well. He said, this is why I disagree with this, and I will not support it. I think there's a part of it that, from what he said, is him misunderstanding that, and I think that hurts his message too. Whether or not it was intentional or not, whether it was malicious misunderstanding, like he intentionally worded his response in a way that he knew was inaccurate, or whether it was he just didn't quite fully understand it. And I also, maybe the website looked enough different at the time that it didn't have the accurate FAQ and all that different stuff, so maybe it wasn't as clear, because I didn't look at the website at the time. But I also think he mishandled the way he could have had an impact on it, because if this is something that he truly cared about, he should have reached out to Ross to adjust the language and work on the language and make sure that he, as a developer, had input on it. I'm going to be getting into part 2 here in a second recording, but you'll get that probably on a different day. This side was a little bit more, it's forgiving of him, a little bit more understanding, because listen, at this point, he hasn't really done anything egregiously wrong. He hasn't acted immaturely. He hasn't acted inappropriately. He stated his opinion on something based on his understanding of it, and whether or not his understanding of it was correct or not, he was just stating his opinion on a matter. I think he should have used his influence and used the fact that he is a respected figure, or was a respected figure in the field, in order to be able to work with Ross on the initiative, rather than just say I disagree with it, if it is something he truly cared about. But gonna move on to part 2 here, which is going to be going over his more recent reactions.